The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from FederalJack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is June 10th, 2014. So what am I going to be getting into tonight? Well, as I promised in the advertising for the show for the past hour to 2 hours, I'm going to Woodshed, CNN, and MSNBC. Now, I've taken them to the Woodshed multiple times before, and they're presenters, they're news presenters, as they like to call themselves. I've taken them to the Woodshed plenty of times before. I've even taken their guest, who's going to be going to the Woodshed with them, Mr. Mark Potok, to the Woodshed multiple times before. But it's important to do this because we've had a rash of violence in the past couple weeks. I mean, it's been going on, but the past couple weeks has been just one thing after another. And again, it's guns being blamed. It's all the guns' fault. It's guns. Although half of the violence being perpetrated out there is being done with knives. What do I mean? Oh, I mean all these killings in the name of Slender Man, which I'm going to get into. I'm going to, not too much as an issue itself, but I'm going to cover it to explain a few things. So we need gun control, and that'll curb all the violence, including the stabbings that we've seen happening. No, of course, that won't curb the violence. I'm being a bit facetious and sarcastic. So, where do I begin? Well, since I mentioned Slender Man, let me start there. So recently you've had, three stabbings now? 2 or 3? Where kids involved in this stabbing blame Slender Man. I was inspired by Slender Man, and now all these articles, these people that write about Slender Man are like, oh my God, he's some sort of internet demon. Why do kids follow him? Oh my God, who is this Slender Man? It's a meme. It's a meme. All you have to do is type into your search engine of choice, where did Slender Man come from? It's really not that hard, people. It's not. And I'm not being a dick when I say that, but seriously. I mean, some of the stuff that I'm seeing written about is just, whether it's from the mainstream or even people in the alternative media, not knowing what the hell they're talking about when they reference Slenderman. Do 5 minutes of research. He came from 4chan. I've said this before. There was a contest, and I don't know if they were, what the hell the outcome of the contest was, what they won, whatever. But there was this contest back in like 2009, and it was to make like a scary photo, and the thing that make a real photo scary using Photoshop, and one of the winners was one of the things that came out of it. I don't even know if it won, but one of the things that came out of it was Slenderman, because it was just this thing that this guy had created, this tall, skinny, black suit wearing thing on a playground in a picture, and it creeped people out so much that they kind of ran with it, and it became a meme, and then creative thinking and writing and everything else. And now it's all Slenderman's fault. It's not the person who actually did the stabbing's fault. They couldn't possibly have any responsibility, right, mainstream media? Because that's the way it's reported. Well, they did it because of Slenderman. No, they did it because they have issues, okay, and they're blaming Slenderman. See, that's the way it should be presented. Not they did it to appease Slenderman. Who is Slenderman? Or they call him Slenderman. Really? Really? Slenderman? It's a meme. What are you going to ban? Creative writing now? Where are the calls for banning Creepypasta, which is one of the websites that, and it's not just Creepypasta, there's tons of other websites, but that's one of the websites where the Slenderman stories exist. So are we going to ban creative writing and creepypasta.org or whatever the hell is, or .wiki or whatever the frick it is, or .com? We're going to ban that. We're going to ban kids writing about horror stories and horror movies because they're just too violent. Oh, wait a minute. Then that would get into the entertainment industry, right? And then you couldn't make movies that sell bazillions of dollars like Saw or Hostel and stuff like that. But that doesn't put any violent thoughts in people's heads. It's never the movies or the video games. It's never any of that stuff, right? It's got to be the creative writing or the gun. You know what? It's the gun's fault that those girls stabbed people. That's the problem. We need gun control. We need gun control. It just makes perfect sense now. I understand where they're going with this. We need gun control because people got stabbed. No, we don't. You don't see people talking about the stabbings. They talk about it, but they talk about the Slenderman aspect. They don't talk about knife control. I went off on that last week. They don't talk about any of that stuff. They talk about gun control, though, whenever there's a shooting, don't they? They demonize the quote-unquote patriot movement. Oh, God, it gives me a headache to even say that. Anyway, I'll get into that in a second. But here's my point with this whole Slenderman thing. So these kids are supposedly emulating stories or inspired by stories, and they in one case the girl stabbed her mother, in the other case 2 girls stabbed their friend like 19 times. They're like 12 years old, right? I'm sure it's all just Slenderman, though, right? It has nothing to do with the fact that the one girl already had mental issues. Her mother even said, well, she has mental issues, but I never thought she'd try to hurt me. Well, there's your answer. She had mental issues, obviously, okay? But you see, the way they present the story in the news that from a different angle, so you don't pay attention to the fact that although there is a lot of violence, half of the violence that you have heard about in the news in the past 2 weeks has been perpetrated with knives. But you do not hear this push for knife control or anything else. You do, however, hear a push for any time there's a shooting, you hear a push for more gun control, and now, which I'm going to get into, the shooting of these 2 police officers, it's, oh my God, anti-government. Anything anti-government, you now want to kill cops. And if you equate cops to Nazis, that means you want to kill them. That's what's coming across here. That's the way they're pushing this. Well, that's what we get out of it. We're taking from it that they equate cops to Nazis, and if you think a law enforcement officer is a Nazi, well, then you're a terrorist and you want to kill people. I mean, that's basically the message that the mainstream is trying to put out there, okay? And a lot of people are going, oh my God, it's a false flag. Is it real? Is it not? You know what? That can be torn apart. You guys can get into that. I'll leave that up to the 1,000 other radio show hosts that are definitely going to cover that subject. I will not cover that. I mean, I will down the road once we get a little more evidence. I'm not going to hop into the fracas. You know I don't do that. What I like to do is watch how they react to the event. And then that lets me know whether or not it's quote-unquote staged or not staged just by how they react. Okay? You can tell sometimes if it's a real event, because especially when the guy had left-leaning views, right? Because they play this faux left-right game. If the guy had supposed left-leaning views, that gets hushed up. You'll notice those stories about shootings or stabbings go under the rug and shh. But if these people happen to have or espouse a view concerning freedom, liberty, or anything else, suddenly they're a right-wing extremist, okay? And now it's to the point where MSNBC has put me in the awkward position of actually defending Alex Jones on air tonight. Yes, okay? That's right. Thank you, MSNBC, okay? Now you're going to get woodshedded, okay? Because, and I called this, remember when he was on Piers Morgan last year? And he said, 1776 will commence if you try to take our guns. And the next day, that night, everybody was like, see, he's a nutbag. He's the reason why people like him shouldn't have guns, blah, 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 right? Now, like a year later, fast forward, you see him being the poster child for the far right conservative, crazy conspiracy fringe, to the point where MSNBC is in multiple shows mentioning Alex Jones by name and singling him out. And literally, this isn't just hyperbole to defend Jones. They're blaming him. And what they're doing, the reason why I have to defend that, people, were you going to defend Alex? No, Alex is a big boy. He could defend himself. He doesn't need me to stand up for him, okay? And although I disagree with him on many things, okay, and the way he does a lot of stuff, if he's getting attacked as the quote-unquote spear, or the tip of the spear of the liberty movement, or the far-right-wing conservative conspiracy nutbags, then we have to, stand up and we have to help defend him. It's not really defending him because they're attacking all of us. They're saying if you don't trust the government or if you think cops act like Nazis now, which they do. I've had active duty police officers on saying that that there's this majority of police officers out there that are acting like idiots and, just following orders. You know what I mean? I've had an active duty cop on multiple times discussing the same thing. Is he a neo-Nazi? Does he want to kill cops? No, he is one. Duh. So that by itself destroys that argument. But that's what they're pushing. So yeah, I have to actually be put in a position by MSNBC to defend Alex because they're using him as the example. And I called this. You can go back and listen to my archives when that whole thing I don't remember what the date was, but go look up the date that he was on that show and then go in my archives, and the couple shows afterwards you'll see where I did an analysis of it. And I said I think they're going to use this because they think, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 50 years ahead of us, okay? Like, if you're thinking in terms of days or weeks, they're thinking in terms of years. If you're thinking in terms of a year or 2 years, they're thinking in terms of 10 or 20. If you're thinking in terms of 10 years, they're thinking in terms of 50. They're always going to be ahead of you, okay? And they're using this, at least in my eyes, they're using this as a way they used that as a way to frame up oh my God, liberty movement, that people that love guns and the Second Amendment, they're all militia nutbags, they're going to kill us all, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now, I don't know if these two that shot up the pizzeria were MK Ultra mind control agents. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked that far into it. They could have been genuinely nuts. There are people that are genuinely unstable out there. And they might have, just because they have the same beliefs that they believe in freedom and personal liberty, doesn't mean they're part of a quote-unquote movement, but yet they will get lumped in with a quote-unquote movement. It happens all the time. I mean, you're going to hear it tonight, okay? And they'll get labeled, well, they're part of this freedom movement. They're part of it. No, just because they have a belief. Look, that person drives a vehicle too. Does that mean that everybody that drives a car is a cop killer? No. Does that person take showers and use shampoo? Oh my God, they do. Does that mean that everybody that takes showers and uses shampoo is a cop killer? It's the same thing. Well, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Maybe they shopped at Whole Foods and only ate organic food. Does that mean hippies are cop killers? Oh my God, what do we do? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that those two people did that stuff. Maybe they believed in it. Maybe they believed in personal liberty, okay? obviously they were off their rockers. Okay, they weren't right. They just walked into an establishment and randomly started capping people. Now, I could get into the whole. I'll get dragged into. It'll be a side thing if I did this. I'll have to do another show this week on this about this. But I mean, let's be honest. Maybe if cops, and I'm not blaming those two cops for this because I don't know any about them. But if you want to look at it just as not even from a conspiratorial thing or people are crazy thing or rhetoric or anything like that, if you look at it just in the light of there's all these stories you see in the news constantly, and I say the media does this, they're playing the cops and the civilians against each other, right? There's all these stories in the news as of late about cops beating people, shooting people, tasing people, killing people, whatever, all constantly, and they get away with it. Even if this is not staged, if this is actually genuine, you cannot continue to do what they do, meaning cops just with reckless abandon doing whatever they want and getting away with it, and not eventually have somebody snap. You can, it's like an arc, and eventually it's going to reach a crest, and then it's going to go the other way. Okay. I'm not saying that that's where we're at yet. This could be a stage thing. I mean, again, even if it was real, the media could twist the narrative afterwards. That's besides the point. The point is, if put all that aside and just look at the situation of two people walking in and gunning down cops, and if someone says, well, they gunned down somebody else, they gunned down a concealed weapons holder, and it wasn't it was the girlfriend, and what happened was the guy had a concealed weapon, he confronted the one guy with his gun, and he didn't realize that he was with the female, and the female was off to the guy's side and behind him. And she drew her weapon and shot the dude in the ribs when he wasn't looking, and he was focused on the other guy. So he didn't know. Personally, if I was there and I had my weapon, I would have confronted them both from about 15 feet back with my weapon already out. And if either one of them had made a move, I would have put two in each of them. And then as they were laying on the floor, I would have gone back and, if they were still moving, they would have been reaching for their weapons, I'm sure, and I would have finished them off. End of story. Maybe I would have gotten shot. I don't know. But my personal, as soon as I heard the guy got shot, I was like, oh, God, he must have, one of them must have gotten him. And when I read the story, the further I looked into it, it was just what I thought. They said that he didn't realize the female. And that happens. The guy, he thought at least he was there to step in. No other civilians were killed, right? Except for the guy that drew his weapon. But, again, that shows me that they were after specifically the police, right? And they say, this is a revolution. So why would if they were specifically after the police, right? They really didn't want to kill any other people besides the cops. Then why would they be after the cops? If you take all the conspiracy stuff aside, all the other stuff, all the craziness that they were nuts, why would somebody do that? Well, again, I've talked about this on numerous occasions. You can't have people just with reckless abandon going out shooting, killing, raping, stealing, and doing things to the general public and expect that the general public is not at one point going to snap. Somebody in the general public is going to snap, and maybe now look at it, bring into the mental part of it. Oh, these people are unstable, right? And maybe that was it. Maybe that was just for them. That was it. Well, does that mean that? Well, that's the way the whole right wing is. No, it's not. I could say that about left wingers too. How about the crazy lefties that burn houses down or are willing to kill other people to, as long as it's for what they believe in? How about that? Oh, but that's different because it's the left, right? No. Stupid. You see, this is a whole game they're playing. They're trying to divide everybody on so many levels. It's ridiculous. Okay? And they're trying to, the media themselves, because they're the lapdogs of the powers that shouldn't be, the narrative creators, if you will, they are creating this false narrative. You don't even know anything about these people yet. They were Clive and Bundy supporters. Turns out that's not true. But yet, on MSNBC and CNN, I've seen clips where they have people on saying that they know they were Clive and Bundy supporters. Yet, MSN had an article yesterday stating that they had been kicked off the Bundy Ranch when they showed up because I guess they were doing background checks out there. And they realized that this guy had a prison record for assault and some other stuff, and that they weren't right, and they made them leave. So no, they weren't associated with the militia that was out there, but that's what it's being lumped in with. And there are still people out there that don't really know much. So they hear militia, they hear shooting, and they're like, man, we got to do something about this. These people are crazy. They shouldn't be allowed to have guns. Why are they allowed to have guns in this country? I'm scared. Oh my God, we need to do something about this. Oh my God, call the police, call DHS, government, help me. And that's what you have right now. You have a large percentage of this country that are out of their minds with fear, and it's irrational. And why do they have that fear? Because of the mainstream media, because they pump out fear porn, because they thrive and get off, okay, on scaring the crap out of you. When was the last time you heard any of these presenters come on and actually do an entire segment, even a 5-minute segment, on solutions? When was the last time you heard any of these quote-unquote talk radio show hosts, whether it's on the left or these faux right-wing talk radio show hosts like Hannity and Beck and Limbaugh and the rest of these douchebags? When was the last time you heard any of them come on and actually talk solutions? No, they talk politics, they talk about party this, party that, right versus left, Democrat, Republican, blah, 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 blah. They never come on and tell you, don't be afraid, calm down, use your wits. And if they do, it's to push whatever propaganda they've been given, whatever talking points. They never, ever come on and say, chill. Just relax a minute. I'm not going to come at you with fear. Everybody have a sip of their wine or a toke of their joint and chill for 5 minutes, and then we'll tell you what's going on because everybody needs to relax. No. They come on, dun, 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 with the dramatic music and the intros and breaking news. Someone was shot today. Guns are bad, people. We need a gun ban. And at the same time, right-wing terrorists. By the way, don't you find this whole thing interesting that it just so happens around the same time that the DOJ is going to start looking and focusing not so much on any other type of terrorism except for homegrown terrorism? Really? Really? Now, again, I'm not saying this whole thing is staged because I don't have any proof that it is. Okay? I don't really have evidence in my hands. I haven't looked that far into it. Okay? So it could very well be staged. But it doesn't even need to be a staged event for them to twist it and turn it. He posted on his page that he was an Alex Jones supporter. So what? So what if he told someone to go to InfoWars? InfoWars is an actually huge site. But whether you like Jones or not is irrelevant. Your emotions regarding him are irrelevant, as mine are. The fact remains that the site is huge, and he has a large reach. So, yes, you're going to have people that are off their rockers. I don't have half the reach Jones does with his website, and I get psychos contacting me all the time on Federal Jack. Half the time, it's obviously cops or feds trying to set you up. Every time I post a police brutality article, the same trolls will always show up and say, we need to kill cops, things like that. And of course, I have to ban them, and it's always under a new name, but it's the same comments. Cops, pigs must die, blah, 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 blah. You're going to have people that come in there and just are trolls. B, you're going to have people coming in trying to set you up, see if you leave that on there, and then the FBI comes to your house and asks you why you didn't delete the comments. Trust me, I've gotten an 8 o'clock in the morning knock. I already know about that. All right? And the other half some are genuinely nuts. Some are genuinely, and maybe they're not nuts, but some are genuinely just so far pissed off and so far beyond their breaking point that they do not care anymore. Okay? So yeah, there are genuine psychos out there. These two could have been genuine psychos. They very well could have been genuine psychos. Okay? The fact that they targeted cops in a pizzeria says to me that they did walk across the street and invite the other cops to, have a shootout. But then eventually the one guy laid on the ground and his wife shot him, and then she shot herself. So they really, I don't think they were prepared really for what they ended up taking on. And who knows, maybe that was the mind control. Again, we have to look into that stuff closer. You can't just jump on it the first 30 seconds and start screaming staged event either. Okay, we have to look into it a little further. What you do is you respond to you engage the argument that the mainstream media is making rather than respond to it, and you dissect it, which is what I'm trying to do, and which is what you're going to hear me do tonight. You engage it and you slice it up, so to speak, with your lightsaber or whatever, using logic. You do not respond to their allegations with emotion and vigor and throwing shit and losing your mind. Because you know what? When you do that, you're just reinforcing the meme that they created out of you, okay, or out of us. And in this instance, Jones, dating back to the Piers Morgan incident, that, again, I said this on air, I think that whole thing was a frame-up job. I think the whole thing was done purposely to frame him, not just him, but frame him in the light of he's the leader of this group, or he's one of these outspoken people at the front of this group, right? And then, because they always need a focus point, someone to take the fall. So they, I already went in detail how I think they profiled him and messed with his head and everything else and taunted him. That's why the cops were messing with him. You heard him saying about it, and TSA messed with him at the airport. They profiled him. Okay, CNN was messing with him. They profiled him. They kept him on edge so that he would blow up like that, and it wouldn't seem like it was staged. It would be very real. It would be so passionate because they obviously did a profile on him. And then once it's on video and audio, then they can go back and say, look, now they have their meme. They can take it out of context any way they want and change it. Remember, they're the ones narrating the story. So Napoleon said it's the winners that write history. And that's what they're trying to do, right in our very faces. They're trying to use him as a meme. And now a year later, you see MSNBC, Jones is the leader of this movement, this violent rhetoric, it needs to stop. But it was okay when it was against Bush, right? It was okay back when Bush was in office, and there were lefties saying we should hang him, right? No one got in trouble for that rhetoric, right? Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. When we get back, the sheddings will commence. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. So, before I start with the woodsheddings, and we're going to start with MSNBC first. Before I start with the woodsheddings, I just want to make it perfectly clear, okay, so everybody understands, because I forgot to add this in the beginning part there when I was talking about Slender Man. I wouldn't just look at that thing as the problem. Okay, people, a lot of these parents, oh my God, should I be worried about my kid going on these sites? The freaking cops don't even tell the media the truth. They'll say, well, you should be worried about your kid going on any site. What are you, that short-sighted, officer, that you don't bother to tell the media the real problem? It's them. Part of the problem with kids taking guns to schools and shooting and stabbing each other, part of the problem is you people, the media, because you make it freaking cool to do so. See, to a young mind that's still molding, kids don't really grow up until they're in their mid-20s. Even when they're 21, their brains are still somewhat developing. Okay? I don't want to hear, well, Popeye at a certain age. Okay, you know what? It doesn't matter. You're still maturing. Even if your brain is fully developed physically, you're still maturing. Okay? You have not mentally matured or developed until you're about in your mid-20s. That's when you and that's I'm not even that's not the point. You hit it, you're good. That's about when you actually start to it's this grown-up change. It's this drastic change. Okay? Before that, your thinking is different. And when you're young, it's drastically different. So if you see on the news media a kid that's 14 or 15 years old that stabs some, 5 or 6 people, and it's on the media for 3 days, even if the kid dies, okay, that glorifies him. And a lot of these kids that do this, where it's genuine, okay, and it's not some weird stuff connected where their father is connected to the entertainment industry or the military industrial complex. But in cases where it's actually genuine, like a copycat, it's because they see it on TV and they see these kids being glorified all the time. Same thing with murderers. Cops know this already. So there's no reason for the police not to say it. Like if someone says, well, Popeye, maybe they don't know. Really? Really? You don't think profilers know this type of thing? You don't think that when they're hunting a serial killer, there's certain things they don't do and there's certain things they do on purpose? Sometimes you see it in the movies where they release certain information almost like they're taunting the serial killer, not taunting him. What's the right word for him? Stroking him. Okay? You know what I mean by that, don't you? Sometimes they hide information to see if copycats come out, which you have. Sometimes they always do this. If they have a murder, they'll only release a certain amount of information. And there's stuff that they will not release because you'll get people that call in and they'll admit to the murder for whatever reason, and they didn't do it. They might claim that they did it, but they didn't do it. And then they'll ask them certain things, and then when their story doesn't corroborate, it's like, get out of here, you leave. Or they hang up on them, or whatever, however they're conducting the interview with that person at that time. That happens a lot. So to think that that wouldn't happen in the case where you take the 24-hour news cycle now, including the internet and your telephone. I mean, you can get news streamed to your TV, your phone, your tablet, your computer. Pretty soon it'll be right into your freaking brain. You can get 24-hour information streamed to you whenever you want it. Okay, so maybe they don't see the news cycle. Maybe they go on YouTube and they check out the news channel's YouTube channel, or they check out another YouTuber who uploads videos of whatever. But maybe they don't buy into the conspiratorial view of history. They buy into the coincidence view of it because there's only two. It's one of two options with that one. Okay, I know you don't. I know I don't like to present A or B situations, but in this situation, when you look at history, it's either one of two options. You either believe in coincidence theory or conspiracy theory. Okay, of the version of history. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe that everything just happens to by happenstance and coincidence, and it just happens to be benefiting these very few people that just happen to be having little private meetings. That's the definition of conspiracy. Okay. Now, do I know what happened, again, with each of these cases, each of these individuals' minds? No. But the mainstream media is highly responsible for this, and they should be held accountable to it, and they're not. They keep glorifying it, and everybody's talking about it, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. But no one's pointing out the blatant fact that they're a huge part of the problem. A huge part of the problem. But nobody talks about that. Nobody's saying that. We need to stop engaging in the logical fallacy-based arguments with these people, pull ourselves back, demolish the argument for what it is, expose it and demolish it for what it is, and then tell them to challenge you with something real, or else they lose the jousting match and you're on to your next opponent. Peace. We cannot engage in these invalid arguments. We cannot engage in this stuff because that's what they want. Okay? You have to point this stuff out like this. And by the way, how about the show, these two shows, I guess one of them got canceled. It was called Cult. But the other one that's pretty popular on Fox is called The Following. They all wear masks and go around randomly stabbing people and shanking people and killing random people out in public for their cult leader. 2 seasons of this. You don't think people, I mean, when I was watching this, I said, wow, this is going to cause stabbings. People are going to emulate this. And then while it was airing, you see more of these stabbings in the news, and you have to wonder, well, if you're looking at it with their logic, right? Could it be? If you're looking at it with a semblance of logic, could it be? Could it be? Could it be? Could there be a correlation, a connection? No, it's just art, Popeye. When you make it cool to go around killing people and you desensitize people to the art of slitting throats, because that's pretty much how they kill like half the people on that show. They just cut their threads. Very graphic. And it's on public access like cable, Fox. Like in your house. You not like a pay channel. I mean, yeah, okay, you might have to, I guess it's part of your cable package, but you know what I mean. It's not like HBO or something. They wouldn't have had this when I was a kid 20 years ago. That would have been too hardcore for TV. And yet they're cutting throats and all this other stuff. You don't think that has an effect on people? You don't think it does? Really? 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 No, I know. It's just art, Popeye. It's just art, Popeye. You're being a dick. I like that show. Yeah, I've watched the show too, and although the plot is interesting, and there's some, I study serial killers, so okay, yeah, sure, it's an interesting show to watch from that aspect, but I also understand what's being pumped into these kids' heads. I understand what's going on. I understand that at a younger level, these kids are mentally, or, they're young, they're kids, and they cannot understand the difference from right and wrong, and when you give them, you're blurring the lines. I mean, all the lines have been blurred as it is, right, with society. And I don't mean barriers to keep us separated. I mean the lines like it's, there's certain things in society that kind of act like the lines on a road that let you know, right side from left side, you stay in the right lane, blah, 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 blah. You have different lanes going one direction, different lanes going in the other direction. And when those lines get blurred, maybe in a snowstorm, hard rainstorm, it's hard to see the road, right? And you can get into an accident. Well, that's what they're doing now. They blur all the lines with these young kids, with everything, okay? And then at the same time, they put up barriers to keep everybody isolated and alone and scared. So these young kids are isolated and alone and scared. They can't find their way down the road because they can't see the road, right? They don't even know where the road is and the sidewalk is, and they don't know which lane is what. They can't tell because those lines have been blurred. And then you give them violent video games, which are very real compared to the video games that I played when I was a kid, okay? And they will program you subconsciously to a certain level to be desensitized to killing. That's why you find kids that if their parents, didn't teach them proper gun safety and stuff about guns, and I mean like explain to them that dead is dead. My father said it to me. My father said to me, I was like 5, 6 years old probably when I first time I ever saw his guns with my older brother. He sat us down. And he was holding them, and he explained to my brother and I, at a very young age, dead is dead. There is no coming back from dead. You do not touch these ever when I am not around. If you first of all, we wouldn't have stumbled across them in the house because they were hidden. But if we, for however, did, we knew that you shouldn't play with them and that dead is dead and that you never aim a gun at something you don't want to destroy. We learned all the basic rules, and it was repeated to us over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was drilled into our heads. It wasn't just said to us once or twice. It was something that was, it was put into our heads multiple times. We understood that dead was dead, okay? We understood that you shouldn't point a gun at your friend's head, but we also didn't have mind-numbing shooting games and stuff like that, and first-person shooters. So that, to a certain extent, has a lot to do with it. The stuff they see on TV, the graphic violence, the desensitizing of the children to not be, oh my God, that's horrible or anything, to just be like, so they slit his throat. I mean, you take that away, it's much easier to push somebody in that direction, okay? It's one less roadblock, okay? It almost starts to degrade their morals to a certain extent. So, there's a large portion of this that has to be, the responsibility that has to be held by the mainstream media and how they do stuff, the things that they put on television. I mean, It's just absolutely unacceptable that you can get labeled a gun nut and causing problems and conspiracy theorist, militia, member, whatever else. I'm trying to think of all the lame crap that they could throw on you just for liking the Second Amendment and everything else. You're a nutbag. You're a nutbag because you read conspiracy blogs. You're going to kill somebody. But if I say to them, well, these people, these kids maybe. Some of these people might see some of this stuff, might see some of this desensitizing crap, and it might cause them to do harm. No, the media has nothing to do with it. The video game industry has nothing to do with it. It's all these right-wing conspiracy sites and the internet and blah, 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 right? Because none of that desensitizes anybody. I'm just saying, if we're gonna throw the blame game around, see, this isn't something that's very black and white where you can just say it's this and that's the problem. No, it's this is what we see are symptoms of a much larger problem, and we keep trying to band-aid the symptom rather than trying to figure out what's causing the symptom. That would be like if doctors, which they actually do now here in Western medicine, they really more so treat the symptoms of a problem with medication stuff than actually treating the problem to a large extent, right? So, instead of, I'm bleeding from a gushing wound. Let's say I have a cut artery. And you're just trying to stitch my skin together. I'm like, you got to stop the artery. It's severed. You need to sew the artery back up first, stitch it back up, so I'll stop bleeding. No. We'll stitch this up, and then your body will contain the blood, and then you'll naturally heal. No, you're not doing what needs to be done. So it needed to be said. It needed to be pointed out. It was extremely important that I take a few minutes to just go off on that because. every time I see one of these things happen, I see the media coverage, I know what it's going to cause. I know that at some point there will be a real event where some kid really does walk into a school and shoot his classmates or something, and it's not something that could be staged or whatever. And when I say staged, I mean, mind control, whatever. They're just total copycats where the kids saw something happen on TV and it was portrayed on TV to be glamorous, because in their eyes, if they're on TV, it's glamorous. It doesn't matter if the kid's a killer or not. They're not looking at that. They're not in their 30s. They don't have the introspective thoughts that we do. Okay, sometimes they do, but they're still teenagers. Put yourself in your shoes when you were a teenager, ladies and gentlemen, and just think for 1 second. Okay, just think. Just think. These kids are being desensitized now. That's all I'm saying, and the media is largely responsible for it. So there is a large portion of blame there. Anyway, that being said, I want to get on with the woodshedding. So first, let's start with MSNBC, who, by the way, these guys make my job so easy. Thank you.
Anti-government fear-mongering on the fringe comes at a heavy price. It's Monday, June 9th, and this is Now.
And by the way, I have to start off. You see how they frame it? Very dramatic. Anti-government rhetoric. Extreme anti-government rhetoric. And of course, it's right-wing rhetoric, and it's, oh my God, it's horrible. It's their fault that these people killed these cops. No, it's those people's fault that they killed those cops. Those two people that killed the two police officers and the guy with the concealed weapon that confronted them, it's their fault that they killed them. It is not anybody else's fault. But I digress.
All of Nevada mourns the loss of our neighbors, our friends.
A married couple, reportedly with a...
And of course, it's got the dramatic music, and they show the two cops' faces, and then they show... And it's like these heroic full-screen pictures of the two officers, and then they show these like crappy photos of the two individuals that did the killing, and they're like these crappy Polaroid versions. So you can see it's right off the bat framing hero, villain. Dun, 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 dun. It's all, remember, again, it's how they present their argument to you. It's all about your perception of what they're saying. Like my drill instructor used to tell me, it's all about perception.
Vendetta against the U.S. government. Authorities say they shot and killed two police officers who were having lunch.
What was the motivation behind walking in with no warning and executing our officers?
We in Congress have a duty to put in place legislation that helps prevent these deranged, evil people who carry out such savage acts of violence.
There's no doubt that the...
So you hear Harry Reid, we have to put in legislation that'll stop these people. You can't stop psychos from doing psychotic things. What are you going to do? Well, we need more gun laws. How would gun laws have prevented? You don't know. You're saying, you see how this works? This is called pushing an agenda. Okay? We need to put, and this is the intro for this. Remember, this is not a YouTube video. This is the intro for an MSNBC, and I'm doing air quotes, news clip, news piece, where they're playing all this dramatic stuff, and you hear Harry Reid, we need this type of common sense legislation to stop these horrific things from happening to law enforcement officers. Oh, so law enforcement officers are now a special class. They get special protection. Yet every day, these very same individuals kick in doors, SWAT team houses. They threw, not 2 weeks ago, they threw a grenade into a house and it landed in a crib, and they critically injured a child who is still in a coma and burned. Where's that? What about that? Where's SWAT team control? No, but they're already in Congress. Harry Reid, we need legislation to protect these individuals from psychopaths. You can't protect anybody from psychos. No law will stop people from doing bad things. Last time I checked, murder was illegal, and yet it happens every day. It's one of those basic things that's been illegal for a pretty long time, and yet it still happens every day. There you go.
These suspects have some apparent ideology that's along the lines of militia and white supremacists.
The American people are depending on us to pass.
You see how it's all cut up, and it goes back to Harry Reid. The American people are depending on us to do something about this. And you hear the cop. They're part of militia. What militia? What militia? Tell me. Tell me what militia. I know you guys are upset about losing two of your brother officers, but what militia? You're going to make a comment like that. out in public, you name the branch, you name everything, right down to the group and their group leader. Come on. What division? Militia. Come on. Like it's the Marine Corps. What are they, the 1st Infantry Division of the militia? Is that what you're saying? Where's their badges? Where's their affiliation card? What militia group are they part of? I don't see any militia groups out there taking any affiliation with this. I don't see anybody going, yeah, we did it. F the cops, F the government. Woo, one world government, you're going down, revolution. I don't see any of that. What militia? What militia? What militia? What militia? What militia? What group? What branch? What division? What? Tell me. Who? What's their insignia? You can't just throw that word around, but they do. They throw the word militia. So that way the general public goes, oh my God. And the other cops too, by the way, because it's also meant for them. Oh my God. Are you part of a militia? You want to kill cops. You're a sovereign citizen. Grab their gun. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. You're evil. You're a terrorist. You're a cop killer. Bam, 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 bam. Maybe the person wasn't doing anything, but too late because you've put in that cop's mind and the general public's mind that person's evil. So it'll be okay that cop maybe kills somebody in the future based off that irrational fear. And again, it's okay for cops to kill people and brutalize people every day. 2 of them get executed in a CC's restaurant. I'm not saying that their deaths are not important. They're human beings. But why is it that they kill people on a daily basis and there's no legislation? You don't see congressmen up there, we need legislation. You know, we need to ban SWAT teams. You shouldn't be giving them tanks and MRAPs, and you shouldn't be giving them, they shouldn't have flashbangs. Cops should not have flashbang grenades. We need SWAT team control. You never hear that. You never see that. Ever. Ever. Not once have you ever seen that. We need SWAT control. But no, we need legislation because 2 officers got shot. And look, again, I'm not saying that they weren't their deaths aren't significant. They're fellow human beings. But they're not any more important than anybody else. That's the thing. See, you understand? It's setting up to a certain extent that law enforcement is a special society and above. No, you're not. Sorry, if you wear a badge, I don't care. You're not above everybody else. You're on the same level as me and everyone else. You're not special. So this is an agenda. And unfortunately, these 2 officers' deaths are going to be used to push an agenda. The deaths of these 2 officers will be politicized because of the nature of how it was done. Now, we can get into it and investigate whether or not it was a false flag operation. It very well could be, by the way. It very well could be something, and I can't that term false flag is actually starting to really piss me off because it's becoming pop culture and misused, okay? It very well could be a shady organized event, we'll say, okay? It could be an organized event that was organized by some nefarious group to push an agenda. It very well could be. It could also very well be 2 psychos who just happened to embrace certain ideas and they decided to, act on them, okay? That doesn't mean every person that believes in freedom, liberty, and everything else is a psycho or a terrorist, but don't let the mainstream media don't let me stop them, I should say, from trying to push that message. Oh, I will try to stop them. In fact, I'm going to eviscerate it.
Legislation to prevent gun violence.
And you can't, again, legislation will not stop gun violence. What about the fact that the FBI admits more people are killed by fists and hammers each year? Where's the call for hammer control or fist control? If we're going to have gun control, then we need to have hands cut off. Well, that's just insane, Popeye. No, it's not insane. Well, I keep seeing more shootings in the media. Yeah, you see it in the media because that's what they're focusing on. When was the last time you saw them focus on a story where a guy beat his wife to death with his fists, or somebody else was beaten to death with fists or a crowbar or a pipe, or run over with a car, or tossed off a bridge, or whatever? Oh, you don't see that stuff. No, that's rarely talked about because that doesn't push their agenda, right?
In Las Vegas today, there are new details about the married couple, Jared and Amanda Miller, who on Sunday shot and killed 2 police officers as they ate at a local restaurant before gunning down another civilian and taking their own lives as part of a suicide pact.
We certainly believe that they're connected to a certain ideology, which is anti-police and anti-government. Immediately upon the shooting commission.
So they're connected to a certain ideology. They're connected. You see what they're saying? The cops they're connected. Well, not they believe or they believe in. They are connected to. So what they're saying is the argument that's being framed is if you are anti-government in any way, shape, or form, or you don't back the police 100% and you don't kiss their asses and you might be against some of the things that they do, or maybe all the things they do or how they act, which are like bullies, well, now you're connected with these people. That's the argument that's being framed here. Just watch.
Are finishing. The suspects pulled the officers out of the booth and onto the ground, where they placed a Gadsden flag, which is a "Don't Tread on Me" yellow flag on the body of Officer Beck.
Now you see what he said, which is a yellow "Don't Tread on Me" flag, because that's what you see the Tea Party and a lot of these people flying, right? Freedom lovers, libertarians, whatever. But they don't tell you that it's a military ensign. Okay? They don't tell you that, do they? They don't tell you that it was actually one of the first flags this military had. The United States military had. They don't tell you that our Navy warships, and by the way, our Coast Guard vessels, both fly it during a time of war. Yes, the Navy flies this very flag to this day. Does that mean the United States Navy is part of the militia and that they're going to lob cruise missiles at Washington? The entire Navy? The same Navy that they use to bombard Libya and all these other Middle Eastern countries with cruise missiles, right? I don't see you calling them terrorists. So it's, again, when they talk about things, it's how they frame what they're talking about. It's all about how they frame it.
They also threw a swastika on top of his body.
Jared Miller then pinned a note to one of the officers' bodies announcing that this was, quote, the beginning of the revolution. The Las Vegas Review-Journal also reports that Jared Miller told a neighbor he had been kicked off Cliven Bundy's ranch 80 miles northeast of Las Vegas while people from throughout the U.S. gathered there in protest of a BLM roundup of Bundy's cattle. According to her Facebook page, Amanda Miller was from Lafayette, Indiana, and attended Jefferson High School. She listed her job as head of the needlework department at Hobby Lobby. Today on the Senate floor, a majority...
So I guess Hobby Lobby now, they're evil. We should boycott Hobby Lobby because one of their employees went nuts somewhere and did something bad. Right? So we need Hobby Lobby control. We need talk show control. We need radio control, free speech control, creative thought process control, gun control. Oh, Jesus, we're going to have a lot of legislation out of this, Harry. You better start writing, buddy. I'm being sarcastic. It's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. I'll continue the woodshedding of MSNBC on the other side, and then we're going to get into Wolf Blitzer and Mark Potok. I mean, it's not really hard to do this. It's not hard at all. The clips are pretty short, so... MSNBC and CNN just make my job so easy. They really do. I mean, don't buy into this, ladies and gentlemen. If you still watch this crap, which you shouldn't be if you're listening to my show by now, but if you still watch this crap, you should watch it with some popcorn and start throwing it at the screen. Or create a drinking game out of it. Take a drink every time they lie. You'll be drunk in the first 5 minutes. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. It is June 10th. 2014. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com, and tonight I have been breaking down the mainstream reaction to this shooting out in Nevada with these 2 police officers and some other violent things that have been going on in the past few weeks. And again, this isn't the end-all, be-all coverage of it. I suggest you do more research than just listening to my radio show or my analysis of things. I suggest you, listen to it, take what I have to say, and analyze it, and, then maybe compare it to some of the other stuff you've looked at and come up with your own conclusion. Maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll have a bit of a different conclusion, but at least you'll be using your brains, ladies and gentlemen. At least you'll be looking into the situation, and at least you'll be thinking for yourselves, and you will be your own superheroes. See, I can provide you with the information, okay, but I will never make you believe it. I will never force it down your throat. I will never force your face in it. Okay, I may force your face, figuratively into the mirror there on certain broadcasts and say certain things or whatnot, or cover certain issues, but I'll never make you try to believe what I tell you. Okay, you have to do that on your own. It's like the old saying, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I can give you the information, but you have to read it and you have to understand it. You have to allow it to be processed through your processor. I can't do that for you. But by doing that, that will empower you and that will help you be your own superhero. Okay? It really will. So, that being said, I want to get right back into the woodshedding of MSNBC and their garbage coverage of this event. Of course, it's not really coverage. It's formulated. It's an argument that is formulated by them, framed by them, to push an agenda of the people that tell them what to do. I mean, let us not forget the chick that's speaking here. I think her name's Alex Wagner, if I remember correctly. Even though she might have a college degree, the common sense department, I think, if you open the door to the common sense shed, it's empty. Okay? So, and they get a lot of these people that easily follow orders and can repeat things. Just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you're intelligent. It just means you were able to repeat what you were told enough that they said, here you go. Well done, trained monkey. And I'm not making fun of everybody that has college degrees. Some of you really worked hard for them. Some of you actually know what you're talking about. But you all know what I mean when I say that it really doesn't prove your intelligence level just because you have a degree or not. So they get the most intellectually devoid presenters on. And of course, they usually have the most, depending on what network it's on. They'll have, like on MSNBC, obviously, they have the most liberal views, or the extreme left views, and then on Fox News, they have the most extreme right views that they're willing to espouse anyway. Anyway, back to the woodshedding of MSNBC.
Party leader Harry Reid lamented the tragedy in his home state.
All the details aren't available, Madam President, but there's no question that these two were murdered in cold blood. We in Congress have a duty to put in place legislation that helps prevent these deranged, these weird, these evil people who carry out such savage acts of violence.
But how random is that? We need to put legislation in place that stops these weird, deranged people. So what do you consider weird, Harry? People that don't live like you and aren't bazillionaires and scumbags and, like a low-level version of Tony Soprano? You're just as bad as he was and just as evil, except you do so with a soft-spoken voice. You hide behind that soft-spoken voice and you're really evil, Harry. But I don't see anybody having any legislation to get Harry Reid arrested for all the things that you could be connected to and all the shady things that you've done over the years. No, I don't see that happening. Or any of your fellow congressmen or women, Congress critters. Ugh. Anyway, how fitting was it that he actually destroyed his own argument in the beginning with this first sentence? We don't have all the facts yet, but it's clear that this was done out of hatred and violence, and they were bad, and we need to pass laws that'll stop these people from doing this stuff. So wait a minute, hold on. You're calling for new laws to be enacted, okay? We need to enact new laws, but you don't even know the facts of the case yet. How can you call for a law to ban anything? Again, pointing how they already have an agenda and they're just using events, whether or not they're staged or not is another level of the argument, which does need to be looked at and examined. But for what I'm talking about, we're not even looking at that, okay? Whether the event was staged or not staged, they are riding these two dead cops like surfboards, on the waves of their agenda. That's what they're doing. That might sound harsh for people to hear. That might be really harsh for people to hear or sound harsh for me to say, but it's the truth. And I'm not trying to defile the memory of those two officers to any cops that hear this broadcast. I'm not trying to pick on them, but that's what the politicians are doing. They don't care about those two dead officers. Do you think they're going to take care of their families? Do you think they're going to, and if they do, it'll be for political grandstanding. It won't be for anything else, just like they do with the soldiers and the Marines and the sailors and the airmen when they come home in a freaking flag-draped coffin. They don't care. They do not care. They are going to use them. And that's what they are doing. They're pushing an agenda. Okay? No legislation will stop this, and you don't know the facts. So how the hell can you call for legislation? Well, it's got to be the guns, right? Because it's the guns' fault that these people were psychos, right? Or maybe we need to ban free speech. That's next. But no, here comes the part where MSNBC makes me defend Alex Jones.
On the airwaves today, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, of whom Jared Miller was allegedly a fan of, Alex Jones fomented even more anti-government paranoia. So
you see how they frame the argument? Even if the guy did go to Jones's website, which a lot of times, by the way, in all fairness, he does get, attached to a lot of these events lately in the beginning, right in the beginning, the first day or two, the past 6-7 months, but since that whole thing on CNN, right, is really when I've noticed they've been doing it, and I've talked about this. Jones keeps getting brought up and dragged into this, and they keep saying it's Alex Jones, not so much it's his fault, and they'll say that they're alluding to it being his fault because of how he talks, but at the same time, they're over the course of time, a lot of these things that they say he was connected to, or the people that they did it, were his fans, weren't. So we don't know if that's true. And again, in the next couple of days, maybe it'll play out that the guy was not a fan of Jones. Perhaps he was. Again, he's got a reach where he gets millions of hits a day. You don't think the law of averages, looking at that and looking at how many numbers and people will hear his stuff on YouTube, and people will download the clip from his YouTube channel and re-upload it to 15, 20 other channels. And this happens all over. You don't think someone somewhere that's a little unstable might see something he says? You can't blame him for that. If that's the truth, then anybody that does anything on behalf of the other side, right, the quote-unquote other side, that does, let's say they're an Obama supporter, but they do something horrific. Well, then you have to look at it in the same light. Oh, but you won't. So then if you won't, that means there's an agenda at play. That means that there's an ulterior motive. Okay?
Yeah.
We are in the middle of a globalist revolution against this country right now, and my gut tells me that the cold-blooded, degenerate, evil killing of 2 police officers and a citizen in Las Vegas yesterday is absolutely staged, ladies and gentlemen.
Joining me now is the host of MSNBC's The Reid Report, Joy Reid. Joy, this keeps getting stranger and more distressing by the hour. There are 2 pieces here. One seems to be the epidemic of mass violence and mass shootings in public spaces. The other is the zealotry of the far, far right fringe. And Alex Jones.
Now, hold on. You see what she says? There's this epidemic of mass shootings and mass violence. The other mass violence would be the stabbings that go on and things. But they won't say stabbings. They say mass violence and mass shootings. See, there's certain key words that are thrown around by the media on purpose because the use of these key words, okay, it's almost like it's not almost like, it's programming you. It's certain phrases that some of the stuff is even made up. It's not even real things that they say. I mean, yes, the word mass shooting is, but a lot of this stuff was created. It's almost like media memes, if you will. Okay, it's buzzwords and stuff created by them, and then you see it goes from there's all these mass violence and shootings, and then she goes, what does she say? She labels it with right-wing conspiracy talk, right-wing talk radio, blah 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 blah, right-wing conspiracy theories. Well, hold up. A lot of these people, or if you go back and look at the violence in the past, let's look at it for the past 2 years. A lot of these mass shootings or events where people got stabbed or events. Let's look at actually how many of them were quote-unquote right-wing extremists and how many were perhaps espousing liberal views. And I know at least in one case, one of the guys was an ardent Obama supporter. So what about that? Oh, but you see what they'll do is they'll just label all of them as quote-unquote right-wing problems, right-wing conspiracy people, right-wing violence nutbags. But and the general public, a large portion of it, will not look into it. Anybody that still listens to MSNBC isn't going to go do the research. They're going to take what MSNBC just told them as gospel, and they're going to be like, oh my god, and it's not true at all. See how things can be twisted to manipulate a narrative?
Is unbowed.
Yeah. And I think that second piece is really important, because here you had a couple who both were drawn to Nevada to support Cliven Bundy, who, as you'll recall, had people around him armed in the vicinity of Bureau of Land Management officials, meaning that there could have been, violence there where you had people pointing guns at federal officials and getting away with it because the BLM decided to back off so as not to foment violence, so as not to escalate the situation. And mixed into that crowd is this guy who gets quoted by local media and who says he was pushed out because he had, wait for it, a criminal record. This is a guy who had a criminal record of DUI, of assault charges going back to
Now you see, they just tried to villainize the entire Bundy Ranch thing. Oh my God, they had weapons and they were standing up to the federal government and they didn't get in trouble because the federal government's not God, dummy. Maybe in your mind, that's actually what you believe. And you know what part of the problem is? A lot of these presenters, they believe this stuff. Again, that's why they hire certain people. Okay? And they really believe it. Oh, you can't do that. The federal government is God. The federal government is God. You have to do exactly what they tell you. You had armed people around government officials. Oh my God. They had guns. Well, you people over there in New York City and in Washington are highly, out of touch with the rest of the country. Because I hate to break the news to you, but most of the states in this country have concealed weapons permits. And in fact, I think almost all of them now. And the people, the people that carry the weapons, you don't know who they are. I mean, you're around them all the time at the food store, at the movie theater. What? There's people around me with guns? Yes, it's already happening. They're not just pulling them out and shooting people randomly, are they? Nope, and nope. But again, it's irrational fear and the fact that you two are probably out of touch with things because, see, the media lives and hangs out with the elites, so they live in this little bubble, and that's what they report on. They report on that's why you see, talking heads at networks and anchors, as they like to call themselves, marrying people inside the government. There's this really incestuous relationship between the media and the government. So they live in this own little bubble fantasy world where they're not connected. And that's partially what you see here. Okay, so it's all the right wing. It's all the right wing evil people that talk about conspiracies are against government.
2001, 2002, and yet they had a whole shopping cart full of weapons. They were able to kill 2 police officers who were just having lunch and then move on to a second scene and kill yet another person. It's horrific, but it does point out that law enforcement is in particular danger with this anti-government ideology because the face of authority is wearing a uniform and a badge. And police officers, friends of mine who are law enforcement officers in Florida, they always worry that it's not so much the sort of organized criminal because that they are trained to deal with that. But there are people who are being killed in routine confrontations with civilians who are armed and who you just don't know what they're thinking. Police officers, that's why they consistently oppose the mass proliferation of the kinds of guns that sometimes are more powerful weaponry than they have.
First of all, they have MRAPs. Nobody has tanks. They have armored vehicles and they have tanks. And you see the love here? It's all about the cops. It's all about, oh my God, these people, the cops are worried about coming upon somebody that's armed. My cop friends in Florida, maybe your cop friends in Florida are new cops because guess what? People have had guns down here in Florida for a very long time, and the police have never had a problem with them before. Part of the problem is the fact that they keep pumping this propaganda into everybody's head that if you don't like authority or if you're against the government, you see how, by the way, what did I say when I had Sergeant John Shirley. He was, again, an active duty police officer, member of Oath Keepers, a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. He's been on a couple times now, and what have him and I talked about? How they're trying to push this divide between us and the police. That's one of the reasons the mainstream media constantly portrays the police when they play the police brutality videos. And even if they're not portraying the police in a bad light, they still play the video. They know what they're doing. They're playing a game. They're playing a game, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard her frame the argument with this little smirk on her face on MSNBC, if you ever see the video. And she's sitting there, and she's like, if you're against government, the police are the police. There's this war on police. They're in so much danger from these anti-government people. You see what they're doing? Do you see what they're doing? They are framing the argument. They are drawing a line in the sand and forcing you to choose a side. It's not that that's actually what reality is. They are setting reality at that point by dragging their finger in the sand and saying, you have to choose a side. What somebody should do is just come up with their foot and scratch out the line in the sand and say, F you, I don't have to choose a side, I see what you're doing. And then explain to everybody how they're playing games and break it down. And that's what I'm doing, because I'm not going to choose a side, and I'm not going to let you choose a side either, because that's not the way to win this. That's what they want. They want side A versus side B. And then whatever comes out of the outcome of that, they control. It's this game that they keep playing over and over and over again. Okay? They keep pushing. There's this war on police. Go look up the top 10 most dangerous jobs. Police officer is not in it. I'm not kidding. Go look up the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the United States, and being a cop is not one of them. But they'll tell you, if you listen to the media and to the police, they're at war, they're in constant danger, oh my God.
And I think, gun safety is a huge part of this, right? I mean, if they hadn't been armed, they wouldn't have been able to kill these people. At the same time, where is the culpability? Where does the responsibility lie with the Alex Joneses of the world? On Jared Miller's Facebook page in 2013, in February, he wrote, Jared Miller told people to read Alex Jones's website, writing Infowars.com, get informed or get stupid. Alex Jones today is saying that this is a setup, a staged event, fomenting even more paranoia around this. One has to wonder. I mean, it's sort of beyond the realm of the logical. This, and at what point does anyone get to say to Alex Jones, this is completely irresponsible?
Yeah, and
so Alex Jones is irresponsible for saying that he thinks that this is a staged event. And you see it's an attack on free speech is what it is. It's an attack on free speech, because although you may not like what Jones does or how he runs his business, and I don't agree with everything he does or says, but you know what? He is an effective platform to at least to the general populace, to the people. Once they start waking up, yes, they do look to other sources, to the rest of us. But he is kind of like a big blunt sledgehammer to a certain degree, to wake some people up, to pull some people out of their trance-like state. So what you see is him being attacked, and you see him again because of the whole Piers Morgan thing, and they didn't even bring it up, but they don't have to. They've already framed that argument previously, okay, in broadcasts past with other individuals and other networks. Remember, they all have the same talking points, okay? And of course, now Jones is the bad guy for it. And he's taking the fall. Oh my God! At what point do we have to say enough is enough? And you have responsibility in this. He doesn't have any responsibility. Again, I don't agree with everything Alex Jones does. I don't agree with the way he runs his whole business all the time. I don't like the way he acts some of the times. Okay, but that doesn't mean the guy is a violent, malicious scumbag. I have never once on his show. Okay, never once have I heard him say you should go out and commit acts of violence. Never has he ever said that. Never. He's not stupid enough to set himself up like that. I mean, he talked about Hal Turner doing that years ago. So no, I may not agree with everything he does, and you may not either. But he's certainly not a terrorist. He's certainly not in a militia group, and he certainly doesn't abdicate violence on his radio show. That's just patently false. So I don't think he has anything to apologize for. Could he have jumped on the conspiracy wagon too quick with, it's a staged event, blah, blah. Maybe. Some people have done that in the alternative media before, but that's not even the argument they're making. They're saying he shouldn't be talking about this at all because it doesn't exist and it's fake and it's just causing crazy people to do really crazy things, and he has to take responsibility because it's all done for money. None of this is real. It's just done for entertainment and money. That's the way. That's what they're presenting, and they're saying that if he has responsibility, the rest of the alternative media has responsibility. You understand, ladies and gentlemen, because they use him again to represent this alternative media as a whole. They try to make us like we're this tiny little nothing thing and we don't even exist, and then he's this head of it. Okay, it's all about demonizing speech. It's about demonizing free thought. That's what it's about. You have to have some responsibility, your words. How about what about Joe Biden? Joe Biden told people you don't need an AR-15, just go get a shotgun. How many of these shootings have taken place where it wasn't an AR-15? It was a shotgun. I don't see anybody holding Joe Biden to task or taking him to task for his words, right? No, but let's take the alternative media to task. Total crappy, logical fallacy-filled, invalid argument, MSNBC.
Even looking at the broader picture with the whole Bundy thing, at what point is it not responsible to elevate someone to heroic status because he is refusing to conform to the norms of every other rancher who operates in the same way he does? Not only not paying his fees, but then recruiting around him this sort of militia, a private militia who can essentially tell the federal government, we don't have to recognize your authority. And you do have the Alex Joneses of the world who, rather than being chastened by somebody who follows their ideology, acting in the worst way, murdering in cold blood 3 human beings who had families and brothers and sisters and moms and dads, instead of being chastened by that, to go further and add to the conspiratorial thinking, knowing there are people who take that very seriously.
So you see, again, it's Jones's fault. He's evil. It's all Alex Jones's fault. He's such a bad guy. It's absolutely ridiculous. Alex Jones is evil. He's responsible for this guy doing what he did. He's not responsible for this guy at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. How is he responsible? Explain to me. Oh, that's right, because he's not upset. He's not coming on air saying, listeners, you shouldn't be going out and doing acts of violence. He has. He's just saying that, hey, he thinks it's staged, and he's allowed to. It's called freedom of speech. How come I don't see the same anger when it's somebody that is a lefty, and you don't see the same thing being said? Well, when do we stop? Some of these people have done stuff where they were spouting off about climate change and everything else. Go back and look the past 2 years. You'll see that stuff was swept under the rug, though. So if they're spewing ideology of the same ideology you believe in, shh, it has nothing to do with the ideology. If they're spewing the ideology that somebody else might believe, some of the same ideology that somebody else might believe in, but in their own twisted sense, it's the ideology, it's the thinking behind it. It's got nothing to do with the people themselves being nuts, right? Right? And you, again, ladies and gentlemen, just go back in the past 2 years. I'm not even going to finish up with MSNBC because the rest of it is just the same thing. They continue to blame Alex Jones and the right and say that it's his fault. He needs to apologize. He doesn't. Okay? If he needs to apologize, then all of the people that support the troops and the invasions of these countries, they need to apologize too. Why? Well, because you're going on TV and you're pushing an ideology of it's okay, we're spreading democracy, and yet we kill families all the time. We kill people all the time. Fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, wives, daughters, children. It happens all the time. Bombs, rockets, bullets, tanks, whatever. They get killed, right? They're following an ideology. I don't see you saying to the politicians, you are responsible for the deaths of innocent people in Iraq because you kept going on TV and saying evildoers and bad guys and we're justified and 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. And you are, that's what they did. Oh, God, the Arabs are evil. They're subhuman. Invade. And that's the ideology that was taught to the soldiers. right? The dehumanization. I don't see you going after the commanders, the politicians, any of the media heads that push the war. I don't see the same logic being applied. Therefore, that means there's an agenda. I have an issue with that. I'm just saying. Just saying. Anyway, I want to get into the other piece because I know I only have a short amount of time left here before we run out tonight. As always, I have a tendency to blab more than play the clips. But it's important because, like, you don't have to hear the whole clip. You don't have to hear me talking about you don't have to hear me play the whole clip, I should say, to understand a lot of the argument. Sometimes I have to because there might be something at the end that's really important and I want to point out. But you can go watch by now. You can go watch most of these clips after I do, even a 5 or 10 minute woodshedding of it, and you could woodshed it yourself. See, I don't want to be the guy that you have to go to all the time for the woodsheddings. I don't want you to have to, I want you to tune in. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want you to depend on me. I want you to be able to woodshed it yourself. Again, we're all on the same page. I don't view myself as above any of you. I don't view myself as better than any of you. I view all of you as the equals. We're on the same playing field. You're not even behind me or in front of me, because that would almost like denote leading or following. No, to me, you're all side by side with me. That's the way it is. And if I can help you understand this stuff, if I can help you see this on your own, if I can help you to the point where you can see this stuff without me holding your hand and you can go out and do this on your own, then imagine what you could do, because now you don't need me to point it out. And I do want you to still listen to me, tune in if I'm entertaining or you like the sound of my voice or whatever. I mean, cool. We're all a family. I do want you to tune in, but I still want you, like my mother said to me when I was a kid, she taught me a lot of the things that I needed to know by the time I was about 10 years old. I knew how to do laundry, like separating laundry, whites, colors, all that stuff, delicates, non-delicates, all that crap, folding. I didn't like ironing, but she taught me all that stuff. She taught me how to cook. She taught me a lot of different things. She taught me how to sew, like basic sewing and stuff. And the reason she did that was because she said to me, A, I don't want to give you to a woman and make you, make her, totally relying on her and, useless. And B, I don't want you to rely on a woman. I want you to be able to take care of yourself. And, that's kind of the same thinking I have with you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I use my mom's thinking to a certain extent with a lot of things, some of the lessons that she taught me. I don't want you to depend on me. I mean, look, let's all be honest. We're all going to die one day, right? One day, good old Popeye ain't going to be around. And I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. Okay? I plan on living to be 90 years old and throwing things at kids and being a crotchety old bastard. Okay? The old guy sitting on the porch throwing things at kids. Get off my lawn! That's I would love to live to be 90. But I'm not going to be here one day. I will be gone. My analysis of things, my thoughts on things, my words, all of that stuff will still be here, okay? And you guys will be able to listen to the archives even 50, 60 years from now. Whoever will be able to, they're archived, they're out in the internet, so they're out there in cyberspace. And they're all over the world. People download them. So people will be able to hear what I had to say and the knowledge and wisdom that I passed on, even when I'm gone. And we're not all gonna be here, right? So if I'm doing this isn't about me. It's not about being cool or about being a rock star or any of that. I mean, if there's people that do that or get into this for that reason, and there are some that do that, then they're in it for the wrong reasons. I'm not doing that for this reason. Okay, I'm doing it so you, the listener, my fellow humans, my friends, you can do the same thing I can. You can look at the world through the same set of eyes. Because if we're all on the same page and can see things as they are, it makes it much easier to fix things. It's much harder to fix something if you're the only one that understands the problem in its entirety, because then you have to constantly pause and go back and be like, okay, well, this is what I'm trying to show you, but hold on, this is what I mean, blah, blah. It's much easier if I say something and you already understand what I said, why I said it, and you can formulate a response to it, an intellectual, educated response, because you understand exactly what I'm talking about, okay? It's important because that's how the team works. And we all need to be on the same page. So that's why I do this stuff. It's important for you to all have your Hoffman sunglasses on. It really is. Anyway, let's woodshed CNN and Mark Potok a bit. Now, I'm going to fast forward it about 4 minutes in here because CNN and Potok, they in the beginning it's just it's a report. The first 4 minutes, Potok's not even in it. It's this report from the reporter that CNN sent out there, and it's the same thing. It's they were Clive and Bundy supporters, they were militia, blah 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 blah, and it's pretty much. I mean, if you have time, I don't have enough time. If I had another 20, 30 minutes beyond this. Beyond what I have now, if I had another hour, I would play the thing in its entirety and tear apart the beginning of the clip and point out how it's the same propaganda and there's a lot of the same talking points. I don't have time. You get the picture, okay? Go listen. Go to Mox News, okay? And you can actually get both of the videos from Mox News from his YouTube channel, which is www.no. It's just www.moxnews.com. So www.moxnews.com. on YouTube, and if you go to his channel, you'll see that's where he's uploading all the because he constantly gets banned by YouTube too, so he's got to make new channels. But that's where all the news clips are right now. The one I played earlier, which I want you to go watch in its entirety, and you can tear it apart in your head, is titled "MSNBC quotes Alex Jones saying the killing was the killing of Las Vegas cops is absolutely a staged event." So that's the title of that one, and the one I'm going to rip apart now is Potok, and it's Mox has a weird way of titling his videos. Sometimes he titles them with comments that somebody in the video made or something. So he titled this one, "There's nothing about the Jews or white supremacists in here. It's or white supremacist views. It's all about the government." That's something that Potok says. So anyway, now that we're all up to speed, go watch the videos in their entirety over on YouTube when you get a chance. But I want right now to focus on this little section here about the cop killing couple, but Mark Potok's views on it. Mr. Southern Poverty Law Center. This is the same guy. Remember, these are the same people that'll say that the Southern Poverty Law Center will push the idea that of what the ADL pushes, that the guys on the USS Liberty are anti-Semitic because they say that Israel purposely attacked them, and it's been proven that it wasn't done on purpose. It was an accident, but they're conspiracy theorists and blah 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 blah. Remember, you heard from two survivors from that event, and yet this guy represents the same side of the argument that'll throw at you, you're anti-Semitic if you're against Israel and you must be a neo-Nazi and everything else. I'm just saying, do they really have any credibility left? No. On to Potok and Wolf Blitzer, who's a major Zionist. So I'm just saying. Just saying, I mean, it's okay to be with one terrorist organization but not another, right? And yes, you guys are terrorists. Sorry, anybody, all politicians are terrorists and all of their minions are terrorists. You guys, the definition of terrorism is using fear and or violence, for political means. So that's exactly what you do with the mainstream media, and that's exactly what your lapdog the lapdog mainstream media does, and that's exactly what your masters do. That instruct you little lapdog media a-holes to come on air and spew lies and push fear and violence. You do push violence. You just don't. We need to stop the violence, so we need more cops to end violence. We need more cops with more guns to go after people with guns, so violence will stop. So violence to solve violence, or violence plus violence equals peace? No, I don't think so. That's not how it works, Wolf.
Perspective now from Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center, organization which tracks extremists and hate crimes. What do you make of this couple, Mark?
Well, they're quite something. I think that they did, or at least he did, attend or was at the Bundy Ranch standoff, and very much was a part of that movement, the Patriot movement, the movement that thinks the federal government is up to no good, is nefariously plotting to force us into a one-world government, and so on. One thing I don't think they were was white supremacists. The swastika, I think, almost certainly was meant to say, the police are Nazis. When you look at their writings, particularly his writings on Facebook, he is on and on and on about police being fascists, about them being Nazis, and so on. But aside from that, there's certainly nothing about, the Jews or other kinds of white supremacist views. It's all about the government, about wanting to lay down his life for liberty. Just a day before the shooting began, his very last post said words to the effect of, "A new day is dawning. We can only hope that our sacrifices will be worth it."
Any indications this is part of...
By the way, you see, again, they're framing up. Now, this is a separate news station. This is CNN and Potok, Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm sure he's been interviewed because every time there's a shooting or something, that it's, extremism, he's the first person they go to because he's supposedly an expert. Right, okay. That's part of the problem. But you notice it's the same type of crap that you heard on MSNBC. It's the same talking point that's being pushed. It's the cops are the enemy. These anti-government groups hate cops, and that they view cops as the enemy, and that there's a war on police. It's us versus them. Do you see the point? Do you see what they're pushing at a base level? What I constantly tell you, what they're pushing. It's all about the division. In this case, they're trying to instill not only in the eyes of the general public, but I see this more of a psychological operation. Not the event itself. I mean, the event itself could be, as I said, shady. But the way that they're framing the response to it, it's more of a psychological operation based at the police officers themselves. Why do I say that? Because they're literally putting, because the cops were the victims in this, right? And they're coming out, and cops are heroes, and blah 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 blah. And oh my God, now the poor cops are under fire. You guys are going to be the face of what government is, and you're going to be under. Now you have to worry about anybody that has a Gadsden flag on their car or is wearing a "Don't Tread on Me" shirt. Oh my God, they could have guns. That's what I see. I see this being used as a psychological weapon to help program the cops that are in uniform now to be further against the general public, to further this divide that I've talked about between the police and the rest of the general public. I won't say police and civilians because they're all civilians. Okay, but you see my point. It's the same talking point that's being pushed by these very same individuals that every time there's an event, they come on with the same basic crap. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, you have to see the pattern.
A broader group?
No, we haven't really seen anything like that. Part of a broader movement, yes, but there's nothing to suggest.
So they're not part of a militia group? Oh, but I thought they were militia. Okay, so they're not part of a militia group, so to say. But they maybe think along the lines of somebody who maybe would be in a militia. Is that what you're trying to say? So because they have maybe the same thoughts, they must be militia. But no. They're not part of a much larger group. No, there's not more people to worry about. But it is part of a much larger movement, Wolf. This whole freedom movement is scary. Ooh, guns, Gadsden flag, freedom. If you mention one world government, if you say there's a one world government, you want to go kill cops. That's what they're equating this to. Conspiracy theories about one world government and the Second Amendment being taken away by a tyrannical government equate you want to kill cops. If you say that cops are acting like the Nazis did right now, if you equate cops' behavior with Nazism, you're instantly you want to kill cops. I mean, I'm not kidding. That's the meme that they're pushing here now. That's what's being pushed. And you really need to see groups like Oath Keepers and on any of these other organizations that are out there that of police officers that are awake to what's going on. You guys really need to stand up right now and step up to the plate. This is the time that you guys were created for. This situation right here, okay? If nothing else, this was why you were created, to stop the division. And here you have CNN, MSNBC, the powers that shouldn't be, the ADL, Mark Potok, Southern Poverty Law Center, God knows whoever else is working behind the scenes. I mean, maybe not the ADL in this case, but I mean, they're connected to the Southern Poverty Law Center, so whatever. The point is, you get my drift. They're all working to widen this rift. So Oath Keepers and everybody else needs to step up and actually do something about this and get involved. So I'm just saying. Anyway, back to the video.
Certainly that we've seen that there's a larger group involved in the violence, or even that these two were members of one group or another.
How unusual.
And I think that is the...
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, how unusual, sorry for interrupting, is it for a husband and wife to be part of this kind of a deed?
It's fairly unusual, but not unheard of. I remember a husband-wife team that murdered a police officer in Alabama about 10 or 12 years ago who were part of the same movement. I also remember a father and son team, the son being only 16 years old, who murdered.
But they're not part of a movement. This isn't, they're part of a movement. Yeah, we have this huge mass underground meeting in Zion, like the Matrix. And every month, everybody meets up there. We all fly our little, whatever the ships were friggin' called, I know the name of the ship that Neo and Morpheus was in was called the Nebuchadnezzar. So we all fly our versions of the Nebuchadnezzar over there, and we all meet up and plug in, and then we jack into the Matrix somewhere, and we all have a meeting, and then we get chased by agents. Oh, it's so much fun. Really? They're part of a much larger movement. No, they're not part of a much larger movement, Mr. Potok. You're just a liar. Okay? I mean, he's trying to connect these people. You see what he did? He's reaching out and grabbing, and the thing about the father and son he's talking about are the father and son team that were quote-unquote sovereign citizens, and they got pulled over, and then they ended up getting into a gunfight with the cops. And they were, oh my God, they wanted to kill cops, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's what he's talking about. They considered themselves sovereign citizens. But again, because they say the word sovereign, now again, sovereign equals cop killer equals you're against the government, you're against the one world government. Oh my God, you want to kill and eat babies and suck their souls out. I mean, that's what's next. So he's reaching and grabbing different cases, which there is no evidence whatsoever to connect these two to the father and son and this random couple that he brings up from like 12 or 15 years ago that killed a cop and they were part of the same movement. There is no frigging movement, okay? It's called free thought. Somebody might believe in it. They might reach out to other people that have the same ideology or the same thoughts about something, but it's not like we have, again, there's not this mass meeting where once a month we're all like, everybody, we're all meeting at Zion, get in the ships. And everybody flies over, they get out of the ships. So, Morpheus, what should we do? I don't know. And we're all standing there on a platform and everybody's looking to everybody else, all these leaders. No, come on, stop it. You're grasping at straws, but the general public doesn't understand this stuff. The general public doesn't have time to sit and understand this stuff. They don't get it, okay? And by the way, the references I was making were to The Matrix. If you don't get it, go back and watch the movies. You'll understand what I'm talking about later, okay? When I said Zion and the Nebuchadnezzar and Morpheus and blah, blah. Anyway, you get my point, okay? We don't have underground meetings. There isn't some larger movement, and we're all like, man, we should go out and kill a cop today. Nobody says that. Okay, maybe there are psychos where 3, 4, 5, maybe even up to 10 of them might be in a room together, and that might get espoused. But I'm willing to bet if there's meetings like that, and they're quote-unquote militia, if there's 10 people in the room, 8 of them are feds. And the best part is half of them don't know the other half are feds, and they're reporting on each other. I mean, come on. This is not an organized thing. There's not some organized movement to kill police officers across this country, but they would have you believe otherwise, wouldn't they? Okay. And again, I'm just saying, perhaps if this is a real event, if this isn't a staged event, as I said earlier, and people say, well, why would you want to go and just execute cops? What would cause these people to do that? Well, that's a good question. Maybe one of the causes we should look at is perhaps the rampant uptick in police brutality and no accountability. Okay, if this wasn't a stage event and it was real, perhaps that would send some nutbag around the bend. I don't know. I mean, again, this whole thing, there's a lot of shadiness to it, by the way. I'm not saying it's not. There's a lot of weird, shady things going on. I just haven't dived into that end of it because I knew that, my peers would take care of that. I knew that my focus needed to be on the response to it. and I needed to drop down in front of their little oncoming train and start tearing the tracks up so I could uproot them and derail it before it gets any further down the tracks. Okay? That's my job. My peers can tear that thing apart, and then, I'll look into it with them later. Right now, I knew where my place was. But yeah, there could be some shadiness to it. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't looked that deep into it. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. But my response to it is more so in their response and destroying it. Because their response is almost like it's prepackaged. I mean, I know that they can make phone calls at the last minute and get people on. Like, I've gotten phone calls an hour before someone wanted to interview me, and they've had me on their show. And I'm talking, bigger, shows that are even on FM networks, okay? I've gotten a call an hour or 2 hours ahead of time, last minute. Hey, can you come on? We had a guest cancel. We wanted to get you on next week, but can you come on this week? Sure. Okay, I understand how that works. So yeah, maybe Potok got pulled out of it, but come on. They have guys like him. It's like they have him in the closet, and they just go, oh, mass shooting, and wait, Gadsden flag, let me get Potok, bing. You see what I'm saying? They have hotline phone numbers. They already know that they can get these people on within a few hours. So we really need to understand the presentation that's being given to us, okay? It's all about controlling our emotions. It's all about Potok coming on and blaming right-wing conspiracy theorists and everything else. And, oh, my God, these anti-government propaganda. And the one thing from the MSNBC clip, which you didn't get it to hear, was she lists. They say that even though someone's Facebook likes are not indicative of who they are as a person, they should be they should be looked at because that could really tell you about who they are. So they started to list the pages that the guy liked, and it was some of them were these libertarian pages or whatever, and then one of them was like free weed now, and she's like, and MSNBC's like, you see the extreme views that these people had, and this one guy had. Look, he liked all these pages. Yet their same network had a show yesterday where they were attacking Maureen Dowd. One of their shows, they had a clip where they were attacking Maureen Dowd for she went out and she ate edibles, and she's never smoked or whatnot or doesn't, and she ate entirely too much and it had a bad experience. So she wrote this article or whatever attacking the cannabis industry and cannabis itself and blah, 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 blah. So MSNBC took her to their version of the Woodshed yesterday, right? They took her to task a little bit for what she wrote about cannabis and, explained, well, maybe you had a bad trip, blah, blah, blah. The presenter in that piece actually did a decent job. I was actually quite surprised. So that's okay. But the next day, they're trying to frame this guy as an extremist. And one of the things that they use, one of their pieces of evidence, is the fact that he liked a Facebook page for freeing weed. I think it was Free Weed Now it was called or something like that. So, oh my God, he likes cannabis. He must be a terrorist. He wants to kill cops. He's got extremist views. But you were doing a piece on that just yesterday on the same subject and backing it, like backing the freedom of cannabis and freedom of choice. So, like, which is it? Which is an extreme view? You see, you have to pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. You have to see that they talk out of both sides of their mouths. Okay? They're liars.
2 police officers in West Memphis, Arkansas, back in 2010. But it is quite unusual, and what may be more unusual is how extremely violent the woman, Amanda Miller in particular, seemed to have been.
In the last few weeks, and you know this a lot better than I do, we've seen these kinds of anti-government extremist incidents at that Jewish Community Center in Overland Park, Kansas. Only last Friday, a shooting at a courthouse outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and now what has happened over the weekend in Las Vegas. Is there some sort of
Wait a minute. If I remember that shooting at that school, if I remember correctly, that guy was just a white supremacist a-hole. And I don't remember any anti-government rhetoric. In fact, I don't remember seeing CNN or anybody else running around saying, oh my God, this guy was a Tea Party person. Or I didn't see that. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, that guy was an avowed neo-Nazi. He wasn't against the government. He just didn't like Jewish people. For whatever reason, he attacked the school, whatever the reason was. I know it wasn't anti-government, but no, that's anti-government. There's an uptick in it, so let's add it to it. You see how they take random things and add it, and most people aren't going to do their research.
Pattern going on here, or are these just random, isolated events?
Well, it's hard to say what is isolated and what is part of a pattern. One thing that I think is pretty clear, Wolf, is that the Bundy standoff in which the BLM and federal law enforcement backed down at the point of weapons was seen as a massive victory by the Patriot movement. I think that very large numbers of people, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands or even more people, saw what happened at the Bundy Ranch as a huge victory against the federal government and perhaps a kind of opening shot in the war that they all wish for and wait for with the government. I think it's entirely possible that the Millers, in fact, saw the Bundy standoff as very important. It might even have been what pushed them over the edge into actually starting to murder people.
And there you have it. Mark Potok and CNN have just connected whether or not they actually have any proof. They've just connected. And remember, there's no law that says the media has to tell you the truth. In fact, it's already been ruled by the Supreme Court that they can lie to you and present a lie to you as fact, and it's not illegal. So they come on with no evidence whatsoever, and they say, you have MSNBC saying that it's Alex Jones and the alternative media to blame, right? Conspiracy theories. And then you have Potok on CNN saying it's connected to the Cliven Bundy Ranch. Even if they were kicked off, it doesn't matter if they were sent away. You don't hear him saying, look, even the people at the Bundy Ranch didn't want these people because they were nuts. No. What do you hear him saying? He just said that he thinks that the situation at the Bundy Ranch could have pushed them into killing. So it's the fault of, now you see what they're saying is the government shouldn't have backed down. They should have Waco'd the Bundy Ranch. And the next time they need to Waco the Bundy Ranch. Otherwise, we're going to keep having these problems. That's basically what they're saying. So they just connected the Bundy Ranch situation and all that to these shootings. Do you see how they do it? Now, there's no evidence. In fact, they were pushed away. There's no evidence that there's actually no indicators that say why they did this yet. And if there are videos out there that actually explain in detail why they did it, we haven't seen them yet. And I guess there's a lot of weirdness going on with when you look into it on the conspiracy end of the people. That's why the event being staged is not a far-out crazy idea, because there is a lot of weirdness to it, as I said earlier. But do you see how it's being presented to you, ladies and gentlemen? Do you see? I don't even have to finish with Potok or CNN. You see it. There it is, right there. Boom. They're connected. They were inspired by it. So even if that's not true, because they don't know that. They don't know that to be fact. It doesn't matter. They've put that out there. Now there's people out there, the mainstream people and police, that'll believe that. And that's all that matters to them. They want to keep us divided. We have to see through it, and we have to stop it. Oath Keepers, step up. You guys need to be the tip of the spear on this one. Where are you? Get her done, people. Don't believe the lies. As I always tell you, the solutions to our problems are an inside job. I love you all. I'll catch you all again live tomorrow night. Put on your Hoffman sunglasses. I'm out of here.